Welcome back, I'm Chris Moore with HVAC Pro Blog, and this week I'm going to share a presentation that was done for my Patreon members 1 year ago. It's called Replacing Furnaces, and everybody's favorite, Fan Law Number 2. We're going to discuss design airflow, what Fan Law Number 2 is, and of course pressure loss. Without further ado, here's the training. So this quick webinar, we're actually going to walk through design airflow, how to calculate that, how to see what the design airflow is for the old furnace, what it's going to be for the new furnace. We'll talk about fan law number 2. Of course, that's the one where we can take a measurement of airflow. If we know what the new airflow is going to be, and then of course the existing static pressure, we'll know what the new static pressure is going to be with your new furnace. It's a pretty cool fan law. And then of course, we're going to wrap it up talking a little bit about pressure loss with devices, and what you need to do in order to verify you're going to have the right airflow to each room. So let's start with the existing furnace and figure out how much airflow do you have. Of course, a great tip here is if you're able to still run the existing furnace because it's not cracked, let's say, with a heat exchanger, you can operate the heat portion of it. You can actually measure your actual temperature rise running at steady state, so it's got to run for at least 10 minutes, right? And if you measure your airflow, you can verify that your measurement's accurate, for one, or you can plug in, if you actually measure your delta T and you clock your meter for your output BTUs per hour, you can measure airflow this way as well. So the way this works is you take your temperature rise. Of course, if you measured it, you would use that. If not, you're going to use the middle of the temperature rise that's on the manufacturer's spec. You can see in the picture the existing temperature rise here for the existing furnace we're going to replace is somewhere between 35 and 65. So when you talk about design, we're actually going to use the number right in the middle because this gives us room for drift if the airflow is slightly higher or the airflow is slightly lower and the temperature rise goes up, right? So we plug in this equation. On the top side is the net output BTUs per hour. That comes right off of the chart there if you do not actually measure by clocking the gas meter, right? Then, of course, you would divide that by 1.08, which is a constant, times altitude correction factor. Here in Massachusetts and most of New England, we don't have an altitude correction factor, so you'll notice that is actually missing from my equation here. If you're working in altitude, you have to make sure you include that altitude correction factor for yourself. And then, of course, the design delta T or the measured delta T. In this example, 50. It's right in the middle. So we do, with math, we're going to do the bottom side of the equation first. So 1.08 times 50. And divide 80,000 by that, and we'll end up with 1,481 CFM. So we know that the system hopefully was designed for 1,481 CFM. And we can then take the information for the new furnace and see how it's going to operate. Now, I highly recommend you either measure CFM this way by measuring delta T if by running the furnace, or you use something like a true flow plate or total external static pressure and using a blower chart if you can to get the actual CFM, all right? Then we're gonna actually select the replacement furnace. And unfortunately, there's a common standard out there where a lot of people will take the input BTUs and match the input with a more efficient furnace. And if you do this, the output will be higher. So the idea is, well, I'm getting more BTUs to the space. But what you don't realize if you do this method is that you actually need more volume of air based on the output of the furnace, okay? So in this example, you can see I highlighted another 100,000 BTU furnace, but this one's at 97% efficient. The 97% efficient furnace has a 2 to a 5 ton drive. Temperature rise is the same, 35 to 65, but the net output is actually 97,000 BTUs, much higher than the 80,000 BTU furnace that we're actually going to replace. It doesn't sound like a whole heck of a lot, but that extra BTU output could wreak havoc in the ductwork, okay? Because you need more airflow. You need a bigger bus to carry the bigger amount of BTUs, right? So we use that 50-degree temperature rise right in the middle. That's the design delta T. We're going to have the same bottom portion, but of course, instead of an 80,000 BTU output for this furnace, it's actually going to be 97,000 BTUs. Now, without even doing the math, I know more output BTUs divided by the same delta T means more volume of air, right? But when we do this math, it's not just a small amount of volume of air. Now we're at 1,000 796 CFM. And obviously, moving that extra volume of air through the duct system is actually going to increase the static pressure, right? And there's a fan law to tell you what that static pressure is actually going to be if you do this. So it's fan law number 2. You need to measure the old airflow and the old static pressure of your existing system, which means in order to make this fan law work, your existing system fan motor at least has to run, okay? And you plug these numbers into the equation. Of course, we know what the new CFM value is going to be based on equipment selection and the design process. You can see the old CFM in this example was 1,481. New CFM was 1,796. And let's say our old external static pressure was a clean 1/2 inch of static wall column, right? So we plug in those numbers, and of course, math here, you have to do everything in the equations first. If my daughter ever watches this video, she's not going to like it very much because she's not a big fan of math. So 1,796 divided by 1,481. The result you would square, so you times it by itself. And then you times that by 0.5 to give you the new static pressure, if we were going to put this system into the existing ductwork without making modifications, of 0.74 inches of water column. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a little high for even an ECM motor. I'd say 0.7 is the max you want to go. And most likely when it reaches that, it's probably going to be noisy because the air is going to be moving very fast through that system. The ECM motor could probably handle it, but we don't want to push it or design around limits, right? So we would have to make some adjustments to this system. Maybe we make the trunk larger. We reduce the pressure loss across a pore filter. We have a less restrictive A coil when we put the furnace in, right? There's options when we do the furnace replacement. We don't want to knowingly put that new high efficient furnace in to a bad situation, right? And really the moral of the story here is when you replace these furnaces, don't do like for like, okay? And if you are going to do like for like, this is one of those things where I don't recommend rules of thumb. I want you to do a heat loss, heat gain, and match, slightly exceed the BTUs needed for the heat loss, right? So if you were to do a heat loss, you might be able to downsize this furnace as low as 58,000 BTUs output, right? But what you want to do, if you're going to match, because you have existing ductwork and you think you can match the existing duct system that's there, you have to match the output of the furnace, because that is what is used in the equation for airflow, not the input, okay? So in this example here, if I was going to match the output, it would be the size smaller. In fact, the drive smaller I could go in order to get a larger temperature rise to make that duct system use less volume of air, okay? So in this example, if I went down to a 80,000 input, 77,600 output, so we're within 2,400 BTUs of the existing furnace here, and we actually run the numbers on that unit, we're only going to need 1,596 CFM. It's within 100 CFM, right? So it's probably not going to drastically change the static pressure. But you know me, let's do the math, right? So let's plug that in. Remember the old CFM and the old static pressure stayed the same, right? That's the furnace we're replacing. The new volume of air is 1,596. And you'll notice instead of running at 1/2 inch of water column, with the new furnace, with matching the output, we're running almost the same. It's not quite the same because when you do the equation previously and you calculate the volume of air needed, the actual delta T across that furnace is a little bit lower, right? It's 45 degrees. So you can see here we'd run at 0.58 inches of water column. Okay, if you're going to downsize below that, you definitely need to do a load calculation. And honestly, you should be doing it anyway, right? If you know me, this is something I've been preaching for way too long, all right? Decades. So please do a load calc and downsize your replacement. Then you don't have to worry about really high static pressure. And most likely, the smaller duct system that you have there will work with the smaller furnace that you're going to be putting in, okay? Now, let's talk about if you're going to, let's say, replace a filter and you want to know what the pressure loss is going to be with the new airflow. So in this example, with the furnace output that was too high, let's see what's going to happen with the pressure loss against the existing 1-inch pleated filter that's in there. So if we measured the pressure drop across that 1-inch filter with the old furnace running at 1,481 CFM, and we had a pressure drop across that filter of 0.15, of course it would be minus 0.15, it's an absolute number. we can plug that into the same equation and see that we're only going to get about a 0.22 pressure loss across that 1-inch filter with the oversized furnace with the output that's too high, right? That 97,000 BTU output furnace. If we were going to use the same filter and use the smaller furnace that we were just talking about that only required 1,596 CFM for that 77K or so output furnace, you can see the pressure drop actually is really close to the same because the airflow is really close to the same. So we'd only run at 0.17. So in this example, I would say with the smaller furnace, we could probably reuse the same type of filter if they don't want to increase it for, let's say, IAQ purposes or something. But if we were going to put it in that larger furnace and we need to start making changes to the duct system and the pressure losses in the system to make it work, that's a great opportunity to upgrade the air filter to a 4 or 5 inch pleated with a much lower pressure loss with the existing airflow, right? And that's how we can start to impact an existing duct system and make a different furnace work in it, right? So it all revolves around measuring and knowing the volume of air and pressure loss for your existing system that you're replacing, and the design CFM of the new system you plan on putting in. This fan law works for every system, not just furnaces. It's just furnaces are the ones that I see, if you use this fan law, could really help you avoid some problems, including myself. I did this on my first furnace replacement. I put in a system that was way oversized because I matched the output of the furnace. I thought I did the right thing, but the output of that particular furnace needed much more airflow, unfortunately. And it was screaming when it hit 100%. And in order to fix it, as a technician, all I did was actually drop down and disconnect W2, which is second stage. It only ran in first stage, and that was more than enough BTUs, much lower airflow, in order to heat the house. So I learned the hard way, extreme waste of money, a lot of service calls. Don't be like me. Hopefully you learn from my poor experience, okay? Now, if we're going to actually want to know if we're going to get the right volume of air to each room, the only way to do this is to do a room-by-room heat loss and heat gain, a room-by-room load calculation. After you do that, you need to actually walk through the design process, complete your friction rate worksheet, because this impacts the friction rate and the sizing of the ductwork when you walk through your duct sizing worksheet. Doing these key three steps is the only way to verify if an existing run is going to provide you enough airflow in heating or cooling. Okay, there's no way around the design process and verification. Of course, if you have to start to make upgrades, I've done plenty of blogs and videos on Manual D and good practices for duct design. Please take a look at that. It was about a year ago. So if you skip back about a year, you'll see some great techniques on fixing and upgrading existing ductwork and good design practices for new ductwork. All right, what'd you think of the class on fan law number 2 and replacing a furnace? If you like this sort of training and you want to get it 1 year in advance, head over to my Patreon page where you can sign up for as little as $8 a month. Thanks for joining me this week at HVAC Pro Blog, where we provide advice for residential system design, quality installation, and system diagnosis. I'll see you soon.